There is no way you can see that ending coming. And let's face it, after that berserk descent into madness and mayhem, it comes as a great relief. Now, I enjoy a bleak, uncompromising ending as much as anyone, but I'll admit, I loved that smile on Jin-Kyu Kim's face as he breaks the fourth wall and speaks directly to the audience. Given that Kim Ki-young began his directing career making public service announcements for the U.S. Information Service, some reviewers have called The Housemaid the most horrific PSA ever made. Imagine Michael Douglas turning to the camera at the end of Fatal Attraction and saying, "Hey, dads, don't try this at home." Now, can you imagine the reaction audiences must have had at that time? Critics were predictably outraged, branding the film excessive, grotesque, and vulgar. But the Korean public made The Housemaid a huge hit, not unlike the phenomenon that Alfred Hitchcock caused the same year with Psycho. Audiences used to being comforted and cajoled by movies were obviously hungry for new cinematic shocks and sensations. But don't think that Kim Ki-young was forced to apply that happy ending on the film. That was baked into the film from the start. And once the epilogue releases you from the film's myriad horrors, you're free to return to it and appreciate its mordant sense of humor, which runs throughout. Jin-Kyu Kim was one of the most popular actors in Korea, making more than 200 features between 1955 and 1986. He was so popular, he made 18 films in 1960, the year The Housemaid was released. The only other films I've seen of his are both disturbing dramas, so dark they veer into horror. Aimless Bullet from 1961 is one of the bleakest noirs ever made, and The Devil's Stairway from 1964 is a wonderfully weird film, not recommended for anyone with a fear of hospitals. And speaking of stairways, I've never seen one used more effectively than Ki-young does it here. A two-story house was a big deal in Korea, symbolic of a family climbing out of poverty and into the middle class. But here it becomes the physical embodiment of every bit of treachery and betrayal. This is such a smartly conceived and well-designed film, it's crucial to note the contributions of the small cadre of artists who made it. The unsettling score by Sang Ji-han, the smooth and at times startling editing by Young Kyung-oh, and especially the art direction of Seok-in Park and the brilliant camera work of Deok-jin Kim, all of whom contribute mightily to the cumulative impact. Kim Ki-young would return to The Housemaid regularly during his career. 11 years after this, he'd make another version of the same story, called Woman of Fire. And 11 years after that, he'd make Woman of Fire 82. Neither had the same impact as the original. A 2010 remake, also called The Housemaid, was more graphic in its sex and horror, but by then the world had changed, and the story's surprises weren't nearly as shocking. In 2019, Bong Joon-ho, director of the international hit Parasite, credited the 1960 version of The Housemaid with inspiring his film, a story about class warfare confined to one claustrophobic house holding many secrets. I hope you enjoyed this unique detour into darkness. I wanted to go big with today's film because it has to last you the rest of the summer. I'm taking August off, per usual, to make way for Summer Under the Stars. But if you want to enjoy noir on the big screen, check out the Noir City website for a list of cities where I'll be holding theatrical festivals this fall. Heads up, Chicago, Detroit, Washington, D.C., and Philadelphia. I'll be in your neck of the woods later this year. Until September, see you in the shadows.